U.S. airports, once symbols of hustle and excitement, have transformed into quiet and empty spaces. The once bustling terminals are now hauntingly silent. Check-in counters are unattended, souvenir shops remain locked, and planes sit idle, untouched on the tarmac. Gone are the crowds of eager tourists snapping photos, and the vibrant welcomes at international gates feel like a distant memory. It's as though the world has turned its back on the U.S. as a destination. But why is this happening? What's causing the world to lose interest in flying into the U.S.? In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the 10 U.S. airports that are quietly scaling back international flights. These airports are a wake-up call to the startling truth about the state of travel in America today. Watch closely, and you'll begin to see these airports through an entirely different lens. After you're done, you'll never view them the same way again. If you've ever traveled through New Jersey, you're probably familiar with Newark Airport. Once a bustling and dynamic gateway, the airport's atmosphere has shifted dramatically. In early 2024, United Airlines quietly slashed 17 international routes from Newark, without any grand announcements or farewells. Routes to major cities like Frankfurt, Madrid, and Rome, once vital to the airport's operations, have now disappeared into memory. By the first quarter of 2025, Newark saw a shocking 40% drop in international passenger traffic. At first glance, you might think that such a figure is negligible for a large airport like Newark. But dig deeper, and you'll realize that this loss is equivalent to losing all international visitors during 2 peak summer months. Picture this. In the middle of July, Newark looks as empty as it does at 4 a.m. on a chilly January morning. Unbelievable, right? Various factors contribute to this decline. High fuel prices are one explanation, while others suggest European tourists are avoiding the U.S. due to increasingly complicated visa procedures and soaring travel costs. But what's clear is that this isn't a sudden downfall. It's the result of multiple issues compounding over time. A cafe owner at the terminal reflects, "I haven't made a dime in the past 3 months. There are fewer people walking through, fewer stopping, and even fewer spending." At first, it might seem like just a few lost flights. But with over 2,000 jobs directly and indirectly linked to Newark, if this trend continues, surrounding services will begin to vanish rapidly. Airports are more than just a place to catch a flight. They are economic hubs for commerce, tourism, and culture. When that hub begins to crumble, the consequences are felt far beyond the airport's gates. Once heralded as a key international entry point to the U.S. East Coast, Newark now feels more like a long, empty corridor, with dim lights leading to an eerie silence. Is this a temporary glitch? Or is it a sign of the U.S. slowly stepping back from the global stage? Have you flown through Newark? When you return, will you even recognize it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If Newark's decline is unsettling, another airport in the Midwest is losing something even more valuable than passengers. If Newark is gradually growing cold and empty, then in the Midwest, another airport is quietly losing something even more valuable than passengers. Let's turn our attention to Chicago O'Hare. Once the busiest transit hub in North America, where a plane took off every 30 seconds, O'Hare has now transformed into a quieter space. Just half an hour later, the bustling scene has been replaced with the soft sounds of rolling luggage and the weary eyes of a few remaining travelers. By mid-2025, international passenger traffic at O'Hare has plummeted by a staggering 65% compared to pre-pandemic levels. But it's not just the statistic that's shocking. It's the eerie silence that now defines the airport as major airlines slowly begin to pull out. Air France has fully stopped its flights from Paris to Chicago. Lufthansa has reduced its Frankfurt route, once essential for business people and tourists connecting the U.S. with Germany. Picture someone in Lyon, France, wanting to visit their daughter in Illinois, but now having to make 2 layovers, one in London, another in Dallas. Airfare has soared by 65%, but the service only delivers 35%. A retired nurse tearfully recounted her experience. "I planned to visit France to see my newborn grandchild. I booked the ticket 3 times. All three were canceled or delayed. The new ticket costs over $2,000. I called on FaceTime, but it's just not the same. It's not that my grandchild doesn't want to go. It's that the flights no longer want to take her. COVID-19 took away many things, but it also exposed a growing divide between the US and Europe. Complex visa procedures, stricter security checks, and the diminishing trust between both sides of the Atlantic have left Chicago, once a symbol of global exchange, in a precarious position, caught in the midst of these shifting dynamics with no clear path forward. Do you remember the last time you flew from O'Hare's International Gate T5? Back then, the terminal was a bustling village. Now, it's just an idle luggage cart sitting under white lights. Although the boarding announcements still echo through the hall, no one steps up. O'Hare, the international transportation hub of the Midwest, is quietly shrinking, making way for safer, more predictable domestic destinations. Are we unknowingly closing off our country, not through physical walls or barriers, but through the absence of international flights that no longer arrive? Have you flown to or from Chicago O'Hare recently? Have you noticed any changes? Share your experience in the comments, because your story might just offer the clearest window into the shifting landscape we're all witnessing. In the southern United States, once known as the bridge between North and South America, the international heartbeat seems to be fading. Let's take a closer look at Miami, a city not just famous for its endless beaches, salsa rhythms, and mojitos, but also as a vital gateway for millions of South American visitors seeking tourism, reunions, or new beginnings. Yet today, that gateway appears to be slowly closing. By the second quarter of 2025, Miami International Airport had seen nearly a 50% drop in flights from countries such as Brazil, Colombia, Argentina, and Peru. LATAM Airlines, which once connected São Paulo to Miami with one of the busiest summer routes, has cut its service. Avianca suspended 3 direct flights, now routing through Mexico. Compared to 2019, the number of South American visitors to Miami had plummeted by over 1.2 million. Even a guesthouse owner near the airport shared her concern. Before the pandemic, we'd have groups of visitors from Bogota to Lima every week. But now, when someone calls to rent a room, it feels strange. Rooms that once buzzed with travelers are now cleaned only weekly to prevent mold from setting in. So, what's causing this decline? It's not because Miami has lost its allure, but because it's becoming increasingly difficult for South American visitors to enter the U.S. Visa procedures are still cumbersome, requiring interviews, with wait times reaching up to 180 days in many countries. To make matters worse, ticket prices have doubled due to rising fuel taxes and airlines reducing flight frequencies. Add to that the growing geopolitical tensions, and travelers are now more concerned about the risk of being denied entry than ever before. Miami remains as beautiful as ever, but the world's view of the U.S. is shifting. A city that once embraced foreigners with open arms and offered attainable dreams now feels like a stunning house with 3 layers of passwords, one that not everyone can unlock. The once popular site of tourists snapping photos on South Beach has been replaced by vacant chairs in customs offices. Will Miami, once a vibrant melting pot and a bridge between 2 continents, lose its international influence? Is the U.S. gradually closing its doors, not with physical barriers, but through the cold absence of international flights? Have you ever visited Miami? Does it still feel like the city you once knew? Share your thoughts in the comments. If Miami is growing cold under its tropical sun, then another West Coast airport that once symbolized international ties to Asia is also losing its connections. Let's turn our attention to Los Angeles, the beating heart of the West Coast and its once bustling hub, Los Angeles International Airport, LAX. Known for its constant flow of massive Boeing 777s carrying passengers from Tokyo, Seoul, Beijing, and beyond, LAX was the gateway to the world. But now, while the lights are still on, they cast their glow over empty seats and a silence that fills the air. By early 2025, international flights from LAX to Asia had plummeted by more than 42%. Japan Airlines had to cut direct flights from Tokyo, and Korean Air altered its schedules, shifting some of its routes to San Francisco. In fact, the number of Asian travelers arriving at LAX in the first half of 2025 dropped by over 750,000 compared to the same period in 2019. To put this into perspective, that's the equivalent of an entire year's worth of visitors to Honolulu. Why has Asia drifted so far from LAX? The simplest explanation is the soaring cost of travel. Round-trip flights from Seoul to LAX have skyrocketed by 85% in just 18 months. Additionally, fierce competition from other airports like San Francisco and Seattle has forced airlines to rethink their strategies. But the discomfort goes deeper. Growing political tensions and a heightened sense of unease have made many East Asian travelers hesitant to come to the U.S. anymore. As one aviation expert put it, when an international city is no longer easily accessible, it's no longer an international city. There was once a time when passengers would spill out of long-haul flights, laden with luggage, souvenirs, and smiles. But now, flights return with far fewer passengers. The gates are no longer filled with lines, and duty-free shops sit dark and untouched. LAX, once a global connector of cultures, technology, and entertainment, now feels like a movie that's lost its cast, left unfinished. As the world grows harder to reach, LAX is losing its international pulse. So, is this a sign that America is losing part of its global identity? Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you flown internationally through LAX? Did you notice any differences the last time you were there? The West Coast might be cooling off, but can the Midwest hold on to its global breath? Let's take a trip to Seattle, the city known for its startups, Starbucks coffee, and once the bridge connecting American innovation with Asia. But now, at SeaTac Airport, the bustling crowds of Japanese, Mandarin, and Korean-speaking travelers have largely disappeared. In fact, by the first half of 2025, Seattle-Tacoma International Airport had lost nearly 60% of its international flights from Asia and Canada. Air Canada canceled its crucial direct flights from Vancouver to Seattle, and airlines like Hainan Airlines and Saman Air scaled back their services from China. The impact has been stark. Over 800,000 fewer international visitors, an entire population the size of San Francisco, now missing from the airport. Many had viewed Seattle as an unshakable commercial hub, immune to such changes. But in reality, the rising cost of living has made tourists hesitant, and the sluggish visa processing for international students and professionals, particularly from Asia, has only exacerbated the issue, especially in light of increasing political tensions in the U.S. Moreover, major Chinese tech companies have also dialed back their spending on travel, opting for online meetings instead, further contributing to the sharp decline in international flight demand. A former SeaTac employee recalls, "Before every morning, hundreds of Asian passengers would board their flights. Now I work half a shift, and it feels like time is moving in slow motion. SeaTac now feels like a song without its climax." The international flight boards at the airport are mostly empty, now showing only a few names, mostly domestic flights or routes to Canada. The international check-in counters no longer need to be fully operational, and duty-free stores have reduced their hours. The airport is still open, but it feels like a phone call that has lost connection. Still there, but no longer in touch with the world. Seattle once stood as a beacon of global exchange, a city for intellect and technological innovation. But now, as the brightest minds, the ones who could benefit the most, struggle to visit with ease. What is the future of this city? Have you flown internationally from SeaTac? When was the last time you saw the airport bustling with travelers? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience will help us understand the changes unfolding before us. From the snowy peaks of the north, we now turn our attention to Denver, a city that has long stood as a gateway between the majestic Rocky Mountains and the world. Once a thriving destination for international tourists, particularly those from Canada, Denver now faces an unexpected and concerning decline in its global connections. In less than a year, Denver International Airport has lost all direct flights from Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. routes that Air Canada had proudly maintained for decades. This sudden shift has resulted in an overcrowding of connecting flights, leading to longer wait times and greater frustration for passengers. From the third quarter of 2024 to mid-2025, the city saw a 45% drop in international passenger numbers, with the Canadian market, historically one of Denver's most stable, being hit the hardest. To put this into perspective, if you're running a hotel in Aspen Resort, you'll notice that Canadian bookings are now only a third of what they were before 2020. Although Denver may not be as bustling as New York or Los Angeles, international tourism has always been a vital part of Colorado's mountain region, supporting hundreds of resorts, ski stations, and restaurants. Without these international winter visitors, the local economy struggles to stay afloat. The reasons for this decline may sound logical, but their impact is deep and pervasive. Air Canada has reported a 22% increase in operational costs in Denver, while bookings have yet to bounce back as expected. Additionally, many airlines are prioritizing domestic flights as a cost-saving measure post-pandemic, leading to quiet cancellations of routes that aren't profitable enough. One day, you might spot a Toronto-Denver flight on the board, but the next day, it could disappear without a trace. Though Denver International Airport remains operational, the once vibrant international gates are now cold and lifeless. Currency exchange counters are only open 3 days a week, and the multilingual signs in French, German, and Korean are slowly being taken down. Denver, once a vibrant connection between international travelers and America's natural beauty, has now become a high-end domestic transit point, leaving many to question what the future holds for a city that used to thrive on global connections. As even peaceful places like Denver are being severed from international ties, we must ask, are we slowly slipping into a more isolated America? Have you flown directly from Canada to the US? Do you notice the change, even if it's not widely discussed? Share your thoughts in the comments, as your experience could serve as the clearest evidence of these shifts. Goodbye to the snowy peaks of Denver, and let's turn our focus to a city that has long stood as a beacon of knowledge and history, a place once synonymous with international academic dreams. But today, even the airport of this iconic city is seeing fewer visitors than ever before. Welcome to Boston Logan Airport, once the entry point for intellectuals from all over the world, particularly students coming to pursue higher education in the United States. Students from the UK, France, India, and China arrived here with hopes in their backpacks, carrying scholarships and dreams of a brighter future. But now, those suitcases are hardly seen anymore. In the past 12 months, Logan Airport has seen a staggering 48% drop in international passenger traffic, especially from countries that once sent the most international students, such as India, South Korea, and the UK. Air France stopped its Paris-Boston route at the end of 2024, and Air India switched its New Delhi flight to JFK in New York, moving Boston down the priority list. Massachusetts, once home to over 30,000 international students every year, now finds these students struggling with more complicated and expensive flight options. This isn't just an inconvenience. It's slowly eroding Boston's once strong international appeal. A 22-year-old student from India, studying for a master's degree at Tufts University, shared her frustration. To get to Boston, I have to lay over twice in Dubai and Newark. The entire journey takes 38 hours, and it costs 3 times the amount of my first semester tuition. She added, "Sometimes I want to give up, not because studying is hard, but because I can't even make it to class." Her experience isn't unique. For each student like her, unable to reach Boston, the dream of studying here fades. It's like a seed that once had the potential to sprout, but now remains dormant. The reasons for this decline are complex. Stricter visa policies, the reduced availability of F1 visas, and cuts to international scholarship programs have all played a role. As one Harvard professor commented, "We can't claim to be an international school if international students can't even come here." The truth is, the rise in difficulty for international students to get here is not just about inconvenience. It's about stifling future growth, innovation, and cultural exchange. Logan Airport, once bustling with voices speaking British English, Mandarin, and Hindi, now feels like a library without readers. Terminal E, the international section, still stands illuminated, but the vibrant, diverse chatter has long since faded. The once crowded freshman welcome desks are now desolate, and the shops, coffee spots, and SIM card counters catering to international visitors are operating at a fraction of their former capacity. Logan is still open, but it feels more like a quiet lecture hall that no one shows up to. Boston, once the gateway to the American dream for countless international students, is now facing a hard truth. That gateway is becoming increasingly harder to open. Have you ever traveled to Boston to study, work, or visit family? Have you noticed any differences since the shift? Share your experiences in the comments below so that the dream isn't forgotten. Boston, the city of academia and Northeast spirit, is quietly losing its international identity. But could this be a sign of a larger transformation? One that we need to face? Mexico used to be a cornerstone of international travel, deeply embedded in the connectivity between cultures. Now, their airports are slowly being erased from the key flight paths that once made them a vital part of the landscape. Let's take a trip to Dallas, once a bustling hub linking Americans and Mexicans, where flights from Monterey to Fort Worth were as common and simple as taking a bus across the country. But now, these flights are becoming a rare sight, like an old friendship quietly fading without saying goodbye. Over the past year, Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, DFW, has seen a loss of over 35% of its international flights from Mexico and Central America. Aeromexico has reduced its flights from Mexico City from 4 daily to just 1 every other day. Aris Airlines has also cut its flights from San Salvador to Dallas, once a lifeline for thousands of immigrant families. In total, DFW has lost nearly 700,000 passengers from Latin American countries in just 12 months. This isn't merely a decline in tourist numbers. It's the erosion of a long-standing community, connected by history and culture. A woman living in Fort Worth, with a daughter and 2 grandchildren in Guadalajara, Mexico, shared her heartache. Before, every summer, I would simply buy a ticket, hop on a flight, and be with my grandchildren by noon. Now, I have to connect through multiple layovers, long waits, and ticket prices that have doubled. I watch my grandchildren grow up through video calls, but the loneliness I feel in my heart is worse than any waiting room. This isn't just one mother's tale of missing her children. It reflects the reality of thousands of families. Changes in immigration policies, increased paperwork, longer wait times, and stricter security checks have made short-term travel to the U.S. more difficult. Meanwhile, tensions at the U.S.-Mexico border have led to more restrictive travel visa policies. Airlines, trying to optimize profits, have shifted focus to more lucrative routes, leaving popular connections like Monterey-Dallas on the cutting room floor. In DFW's international area, where once there were Spanish signs guiding the way, now only English remains. The Mexican peso exchange counter is only open 2 days a week due to the lack of customers. The popular Mexican Erie restaurant, once a bustling spot in the waiting area, has been temporarily closed because international visitors are becoming fewer. DFW, once a vibrant meeting place for 2 cultures, now feels like a cold, quiet terminal. Dallas was once a place where Spanish-speaking Americans didn't need to speak English to feel at home. But as cultural flights slowly disappear, we're left to ask, are we losing a piece of the American South's identity? Have you ever flown between Mexico and Dallas or vice versa? Do you feel the shift happening? Share your story in the comments, as your experiences are the clearest reflection of the changes unfolding before us. From the bustling fields of Texas, we now turn our attention to Atlanta, once the busiest airport in the world, renowned as the transportation hub of the American South. Atlanta wasn't just a domestic layover, it was the vital gateway for transatlantic flights, particularly from Africa and the Middle East. However, the scene at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport has taken a drastic turn. As you walk from International Gate A1 to A8, you'll notice a disturbing quiet that stands in stark contrast to the airport's former vibrant bustle. It's not due to expansion. It's the sharp decline in passenger numbers. Since late 2024, Delta Airlines has canceled numerous vital routes, including flights to Lagos, Nigeria, Johannesburg, South Africa, and Doha, Qatar. These routes were once essential lifelines connecting the U.S. with developing nations. Even Emirates has scaled back its Dubai-Atlanta service, a daily flight that had been a staple for 7 years. The consequences are evident. International traffic at Atlanta has plummeted by over 38% in just 10 months. To put this into perspective, the airport that once handled an average of 300 international flights per week now sees fewer than 180. For a city like Atlanta, which historically served as the first point of entry for many African Americans visiting family in countries like Nigeria, Ghana, and Ethiopia, this decline is deeply felt. Now, travelers must connect through New York or detour through Europe. So why are these critical international routes disappearing from Atlanta's map? A major factor is Delta's shift in focus. The airline is restructuring its fleet and diverting resources to more profitable domestic routes, seeking to recover quickly from financial setbacks. Unfortunately, while African routes have immense community value, they are often undervalued in favor of quicker, higher-return flights. Additionally, the political and economic instability in countries like Qatar, the UAE, and Nigeria has contributed to a drop in travel demand. International Terminal F, once a vibrant symbol of cultural exchange, now stands quieter, with many gates closing earlier than before. The international SIM card counters have been reduced by 50%. Although the airport remains open, the absence of global travelers is palpable. What was once a welcoming sign for the world's busiest airport now gives way to domestic advertisements, a stark reminder of the shifting tides. If even Atlanta, a beacon of global connectivity, can no longer maintain its international momentum, are there truly any airports left that embody the idea of a global gateway? Have you ever flown from Africa or the Middle East to the US via ATL? Or simply witnessed this shift? Share your story in the comments, because these changes are not just happening at one airport. They're part of a broader, historic transformation that we may not fully recognize yet. San Francisco, once a beacon of cultural convergence and global innovation, is quietly losing its international connections. The city, once synonymous with tech startups and bustling flights from Tokyo, Seoul, and Beijing, is now witnessing a slow yet undeniable decline in its global rhythm. In the past 18 months, San Francisco International Airport, SFO, has seen a significant reduction in its international routes. Over 12 international flights from Asia have been canceled, and the number of international passengers from Asia has plummeted by more than 52% compared to 2019. Asia once accounted for 60% of SFO's international passenger traffic, making this drop all the more alarming. Airlines like Japan Airlines and Air India have eliminated their direct routes to San Francisco, and flights connecting Asia to the US are becoming increasingly scarce. With high operational costs at SFO, many Asian airlines are shifting their attention to airports like Seattle, Los Angeles, or Vancouver. The tightening of visa policies and rising political tensions have made it more challenging for travelers to access the US, while growing issues related to crime and homelessness in the San Francisco Bay Area are pushing international visitors away. This change isn't just reflected in fewer passengers. It marks a transformation in the very fabric of the city. Immigration counters that once bustled with activity are now eerily empty, and the international food court at the airport, once famous for dim sum, mochi, and bubble tea, now faces closure due to a lack of customers. The iconic "Welcome to the Gateway to Asia" banner was quietly removed in early 2025 without a single protest. San Francisco used to be a legendary destination where cultures collided, mingled, and thrived. But now, as the city fades from its once esteemed position as an international gateway, we must ask, can the US still maintain its global centrality? Have you ever flown through San Francisco or noticed this shift? Share your experience in the comments. You're not just sharing a personal story, but contributing to a larger conversation about the evolution of American culture and tourism. Every share is a piece of history, making this video not only informational, but a glimpse into a pivotal turning point in the US. If this video resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share it with friends. Maybe someone else is feeling just as lost in the changing landscape.